I'm just going to say it. The 90s were better, just in general. We had better music. We had better TV. We had better politics. We had video games. Like, the video games were way better. Just in general, as a decade, I'm glad that I grew up in the 1990s and not the 80s or the aughts. I think the 90s was the sweet spot.
Is this kind of like the everything is great when you're 12 principle?
I used to think that, but the experiment that I ran was comparing my life at 12 to other people I know who grew up in different eras at 12, okay? So one, like the generation behind me, my mother was 12, like the 1960s, right? Vietnam War, nobody trusts anybody, that's a terrible time to be 12. The generation after me, I've got young nieces who are 12 in the early mid-aughts. You know what? That's also a terrible time to grow up because the internet had already taken over the world. Everybody's taking photographs of everything in the universe. Too much pressure for a 12-year-old kid, right?
Let's not talk about today's 12-year-olds.
You mean like not a butt face?
I was gonna say, like, is this just old men already skipping right to the jump of when I was your age? Like, well, what are you guys are jumping the gun here.
So this is Al's first album of the 1990s, and I think Dan had made the comment last week that UHF was like the last gasp of the 1980s, but I actually think Off the Deep End is like the last gasp of the 1980s before the 80s finally flatlined.
See, UHF was the last gasp. This is the death rattle.
This is like the dry heave after the last gasp.
But even so, his sound is still very different in this. But in order to figure that out, we have to look at what made this particular album, Weird Al's Off the Deep End. We've got a little bit of Hastily-Made History for you. This album came out on April 14th, 1992. It was recorded at the Santa Monica Sound Recorders, engineered and mastered by Tony Papa, assisted by Jamie Dell and Colin Sowers. This is Al's first album that was only CDs and cassettes. No vinyl records. That's how you know we're in the 90s, guys. This was the first album produced by Al himself. You know, why did it take 3.5 years for this album to come out? Well, it's because Al had the post-UHF blues. I won't say a disaster, but certainly an underperformer for him. He had written a lot of material during the year of 1990, like tons of original songs that show up on this album. We just didn't have an anchor parody that Al felt would really make it commercially successful. He didn't want another Living with a Hernia to kind of drag the album down a bit. Most of the parodies for the album were recorded in 1991, except for Smells Like Nirvana and Taco Grande, which were recorded in the early days of 1992. Critical reception was very positive. It was extraordinarily well received. It peaked at 17 on the Billboard charts, tying with Weird Al in 3D. Of course, going gold and platinum. Nominated for a Best Comedy Album Grammy, but lost to Peter Schiavelli's Music for an Awful Lot of Winds and Percussion. As far as personnel goes, returning personnel, we've got Weird Al, Jim West, Steve J, and John Bermuda Schwartz. The band is back. Warren Loening returns on the trumpet, Joel Peskin on the clarinet, Tommy Johnson on tuba, because we got a polka, everybody.
Boy, do they.
The Waters Sisters return for backing vocals, along with the Waters Brothers, Orrin and Luther. Now, new personnel. We've got Brad Buxer on synthesizers. And if that name sounds familiar to you, that's right, he's the Sonic 3 guy. Brad worked with Michael Jackson a lot of times over the years, and he was the point guy for that whole Michael Jackson wrote the music for Sonic 3 thing, which I won't go into here. You can Google and read about it. All the details are kind of out there these days. Next, we have Carmen Twilly on backing vocals, the singer for the movie version of Circle of Life from The Lion King.
Ooh.
Jim Haas, John Joyce, Gene Morford, and Jerry Whitman are backing vocals on Trigger Happy, while Peggy Newman, Natasha Neese, Elisa Curran, and Samantha Kay are backing vocals on the Plumbing Song. For album art, unfortunately, we don't really have much information. We don't know if Donald Lane is gone. I think they probably are at this point. All we know is the photography was done by a photographer named Kirk Weddle. And we got to say, they definitely nailed.
I always thought it was kind of weird that they were predicting the season 2 motif of Breaking Bad with this one. So it felt kind of out of time.
I gotta say, this is one of my favorite album art. I think it works comedically. Like if Nirvana had never released Nevermind and Al still had the idea to do this album art, I think it would stand on its own. As a parody of Nevermind, I think it's perfect. And I think it's just aesthetically pleasing. I like the blue. What can I say?
I mean, blue is a nice color.
My only issue with it is I understand that a donut reads better than an Oreo, but it should have been an Oreo.
Think about it. A donut is like a life preserver for your taste buds.
Okay.
I will point out, though, kind of the end of an era, because this is like the last album art where we're going to get classic Al.
I mean, he still has his mustache and his glasses in
Right.
Bad Hair Day, but he doesn't have his big poofy
But
hair.
he's doing a hair thing, and then obviously Alapalooza is just an icon, and then after that, he's on the modern Al.
That's true, but Alapalooza still has like the classic Al look. He's just stylized.
Al has clarified, talking about this album art, that he was not nude for the shoot. Looking at our master lists, we still have yet to place another S tier after Polka Party came through and set the whole world on fire. If this album wants to make it up to the upper echelons of A tier, it has to compete with Eat It, Yoda, or I Think I'm a Clone Now. And if it wants to set the new record for worst song Al has ever recorded, it just has to be worse than Pac-Man. If you'd like to go over to Al Yankovic's official YouTube channel, he has an Off the Deep End playlist, so you can join us here in the early 90s.
I think there's no better way to do it. We might as well just go and jump straight off into the deep end.
Now I'm mumbling and I'm screaming and I don't know what I'm singing. Crank the volume, ears are bleeding. I still don't.
Oh, the 90s. It was a time of change. So many things were old, glam metal, forget about it. Now it is the time of grunge. And grunge was kind of the breath of fresh air that we need, much like punk rock changed the 70s for the better, ?
Sure.
Yes.
Grunge definitely changed the tone of the 90s. It's like that's how we knew things were different. There was a possibility that this would not be the lead single for this album. Al had two parodies that were scrapped for a variety of reasons. The first one was Michael Jackson's Black and White. Al had tried doing Snack All Night. Michael vetoed it. Next, he thought he would do, instead of Live and Let Die, Chicken Pot Pie. Paul McCartney said, no way, because I'm vegetarian. And then all of a sudden, here comes Nirvana. And Al loves the sound of Nirvana. He loves what they're doing, but they're not big enough yet. Until Nevermind goes like a gold record, that's when he says, okay, I know this is big enough now that I can do it and people will get it. He gets in touch with UHF cast member Victoria Jackson, who gets Nirvana while they're on Saturday Night Live, gets Cobain to call Weird Al so that Al can ask him for permission to do the song. And all Kurt Cobain had to ask was, it's not going to be about food, is it? Kurt said that's how Nirvana knew that they truly had made it, because Weird Al had done a parody of them. And I think the waiting for us really paid off, because this song is just so much funnier than...
We really didn't need a third Michael Jackson parody about food.
We did not.
If I had like a gun to my head and had to pick one genre of music that was like my favorite genre, I would definitely go with like mid to late 90s alternative rock, which kind of grew out of what Nirvana was doing with grunge. Grunge rock, not so much. Not really my thing. I was like just barely too young to be age appropriate to get into Nirvana. This would have been when I was in like middle school, right?
Yeah. I'm too young also to have Nirvana as the anthem to my youthful rebellion.
Like, this is my brother's music. That's like how I got introduced to it, but this song, my God, the gargling. It's like, do we tell them the story about the gargling?
See, my favorite part of the song is doing the kazoo chorus, which is just an inspired spoof of that overly distorted sound.
I love kazoos.
But I think we could have done without the gargling. I am still anti-mouth sounds here.
Well, like, we were at the Strings Attached tour where Weird Al played Smells Like Nirvana, and we're sitting in like the second row.
Yeah, we were right there.
We were like right there, center stage, second row. Al is on stage. He does the gargling solo live. He has this red solo cup. He's gargling from the water, and then he throws the cup in the crowd, and then it lands right in Ricky's lap.
I pick it up, and then a couple hours later, we're upstairs doing the meet and greet, and he's like, oh, yeah, you drop this when you're on stage.
So this is one of those openers where Al just kind of sounds like Al moving forward. This is him singing in his register, which is, again, I am anti weird voice as an opener track. You can do it if you're like hiding it deeper in an album. And we have reached the first music video I saw of Al where I was like, oh, I recognize the original. I get what he's doing with this one.
Yes, they got like a bunch of original people who worked on the music video.
Do you know who else is in this video?
I wrote down here Dick Van Patten and Tony Hawk.
Yeah, it's that guy.
That is wild. What a random factoid.
It's so crazy. But yeah, this definitely sets the tone for like Al's production quality for the rest of the 90s albums. They are much more in the mold of like how this song sounds.
Do we want to criticize this song for all the lyrics literally just being about we can't understand the words, it being one note, or do we praise the fact that they took that one criticism of Nirvana and stretched it as far and as wide as it could go?
So I wrote down here in my notes was this song is a very obvious joke executed perfectly, because it is the perfect boomer criticism of their Generation X children going, you can't understand what they say. It is a very out of touch complaint, but this is part of Al's genius where he can sort of take that complaint and say, well, there is a nugget of truth in that.
He's still hip and with it.
Yeah.
He recognizes what the youth are into. He can make jokes right alongside them.
Absolutely.
I am a little critical about the songs that only exist to make fun of the bands or make fun of the specific song that Al is parodying. I get that he always gets permission and that he's always in the spirit of good fun. But if you don't know Nirvana and you don't know this song, I don't know how that would be possible in 1992. But if that was the case, this song doesn't do anything for you comedically. And I just think the songs are funnier when they don't have that required connection. And then on top of that, I'm just not that into grunge. So I have Smells Like Nirvana at a B-.
I also put it in B for that exact reason of you need your homework on this one.
Even Al will tell you that it does not hit the same now as it did then. It's one of those you had to be there kind of things to get the maximum impact.
Dan, do you like this for B tier?
See, I gave this an A-, but I know it's going to end up in B tier.
Oh, I accidentally shot Daddy last night in the den. Shot Daddy in the den. I mistook him in the dark for a drug-crazed Nazi again. Drug-crazed Nazi again.
I know that the Great American Experience was what we ended the last album on with Twine Ball Pilgrimage, but this is what I consider peak American culture. Personally, I don't like guns, like recreationally or otherwise. Not a girl face is the hunter in the house bringing home the prize-winning buck. So I went back and started adding a tag to the recurring themes for surprisingly dark, which should have been there since album 1 with Mr. Frumpf and Happy Birthday. But like, this song is up there.
As an American, I hate that stereotype. Fewer Americans than people realize are actually gun nuts.
I do have a interesting quote. This is from Permanent Record, from Al. Quote, I think the song's pro-gun control sentiment is fairly obvious. But one day I was doing an interview in Canada on a call-in talk show, and somebody called in and said, oh, I think it's great that you wrote the song because I love guns, eh? I got a lot of guns, and I think it's great that you'd write a song like that. Not wanting to explain the irony to someone who's heavily armed, I simply said, thank you very much, end quote.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, checks out.
Yeah.
As far as Beach Boys parodies go, this is like perfectly adequate.
Yeah, they nailed the Phil Spector sound.
Yeah, there's no obvious flaws. And the lyrics really do elevate, parodying the Beach Boys with that like tonal resonance of good old American boys. So
I don't think the song is funny because
it's too real.
Maybe in the 90s it was funnier, but it's just Poe's Law in action.
Yes.
Like every argument Al uses in this song to like make a joke about how gun nuts defend their collections are literally defenses I've heard in real life from actual gun nuts. Up to and including like, oh, I accidentally shot a pet. Like that's just a thing that happens in some worldviews. And it's
I don't want to dock the song that is being a parody for being darker than reality though. You nailed it so perfectly on the head with that then.
I don't mind that it's darker than reality. I mind that it's less funny.
Yeah, it's too close to home. Like the times have changed in 30 something years.
I mean, Gun violence is down across the board from the 1990s, so we got that going for us.
Yeah.
We didn't have guns in our house when I grew up, but I certainly grew up around guns, because I was in a rural-ish environment. I was in Boy Scouts. I don't think I'm that bad when it comes to target shooting and skeet shooting. I know how to handle guns. I have a respect for the deadly power of guns. The song doesn't bother me. The problem is that I know the people in this song, which is unfortunate. It's just I want to give the song on its merits of satire. I want to give it an A. Musically, it's excellent, but Ricky is right. It's Poe's Law in action, and I can't in good conscience.
I'm putting it in A for archery. I don't care about it.
A for artillery?
I like an archery range as opposed to a gun range.
Yeah, I've got this in D.
Oh.
Aside from not being that funny, it's also just not that pleasurable to listen to. It's just the chorus just repeats the title of the song over and over.
Yeah, but that's what the Beach Boys do.
Great. Then maybe don't do a Beach Boys parody. I can't ever own a gun because I'm a fidgeter. Like right now I'm fidgeting with a deck of cards on my desk. If I owned a gun, I would just shoot myself.
Yeah.
My,
Can't watch
my
this.
TV makes me so bored, makes me say, oh my lord, what is this garbage here? Wanna cover my eyes and plug my ears, it sucks, and that's no lie.
Here we have part 2 of Al lists the TV shows he's seen, quadrilogy. My God, Dan, do you remember how completely everywhere MC Hammer was in the early 90s?
And then he wasn't.
Then he suddenly wasn't. Like, at that moment in time, I think this could have carried the album as an anchor parody, but by like 1994 or 5, that would no longer be even remotely true.
I wrote down UHF hangover ?
He did get his vengeance on Ebert. He told Siskel and Ebert, go sit on their thumbs.
You Can't Touch This is still, like, it's mimetic to this day. And I would argue that this is the sequel to cable TV where the guy regrets his purchase.
Yeah, this song is very down on TV. Normally, Al's TV songs are a celebration of TV. But in this case, we've got one where he's very much unhappy with what he's seeing on TV. Oof, that's like, there's definitely some collar pulling in this one.
Cosby Show and Roseanne think I've taken about as much as I... You know what? Sitting here in 2023, I would have to agree with him.
If you can believe it, my favorite line is, I can't stand Twin Peaks, wish they'd lynch those donut-eating freaks, which is just
Pretty good.
a fantastic wordplay there.
Can we take a second and just admire Al's rapping chops? Like, you wouldn't expect... This is kind of at the genesis of rap hitting the mainstream. You wouldn't expect, like, a 30-year-old white dude to be good at rapping, especially not at that point in time, but Al holds his own here, and he only gets better over the years.
Oh, yeah.
There's some people I left out of the personnel. First is Neil Ross is one of the commercial announcers. That's right. TV's own Shipwreck from G.I. Joe. He's been in the Monkey Island games. He's a very distinctive voice. He's the one you hear doing the, they just keep going and going. And then you've got Bo Weaver. He's great. He's a famous DJ. You've heard him do commercials, movie trailers, all sorts of stuff. And we have Marlene Aragon as one of the female announcers. She's done tons of TV commercials. She's Synergy from Gem. Having my 80s cartoon voice moment here in the 90s. And yes, they got Edith Four. They sampled her, the actual I've Fallen and I Can't Get Up commercial lady.
Yeah, you and I are on the same wavelength with those. I don't know. I love it when you're doing sound collages like
Yes.
that. Makes me warm and fuzzy. But I don't think Al's gonna like truly hit his stride with these channel surfing songs until like a decade later, with a little bit more development of his rapping ability as well.
I gave this a C.
That B minus.
I also have this as a C, but I think like a high C is appropriate here.
Yeah.
What really keeps it back is just that dance numbers don't usually translate into terrific parodies. MC Hammer's music was meant to be moved to, not just listened to and laughed at, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, that's very much the culture of hip hop at the time.
If only Al had skipped this song and waited for Too Legit to quit.
The Love Shack is a little old place where we can get together.
Boy, the polka kind of came early in this one, huh?
Polka can never come early enough.
You know, coming back to this, I have to say it is nice. There is something to be said of coming back to the breadth and depth of a variety of different kind of music. I'm not sure if there's anything special being done in this polka, but it's still a nice listen.
I think Touch Myself might be the comedic apex of this album. The
I
delivery
don't know.
there kills me every time.
The Humpty Dance Man.
Buttface, you're the one that has impossible polka standards. Can you come down off your high horse for a few seconds and tell us whether this meets them or not? Preferably while swirling a brandy snifter.
So, I can be talked out of putting this in A tier or even S tier, but I'm trying to limit myself to only 3 S tier polkas, as we have discussed. I need to drop the accent; it's too hard. But no, I can't be talked out of this in A tier. I think this is a high A tier because it just doesn't quite make the cut of the string of polkas that we will hit that are all S tier. That said, I really think the special part of this polka is the fake intro, which he'll do again. You don't realize you're going into a polka for the first couple of seconds of this song. And
Right,
that,
yeah.
sock to the jaw is really great. We've also hit the point. This is the polka going forward, where I can no longer separate the songs from their polka covers. I don't know why that's not the case for the previous ones. I'm more familiar with the songs in their original instrumentation, but like every song covered forward, I think of the polka first.
Okay.
I'm not joking.
Dan, do you also like this for A tier?
I do like it for A tier. I wrote A.
As far as picking a song out of this polka that I would have loved to get a full parody of, I'm going to go with Unbelievable.
Okay.
Really?
Because I think that song, I think an accordion could carry the whole riff. I think he could do like a debut album version of Unbelievable where it's just his accordion. Also, because EMF and like Milli Vanilli, which we'll get to later in this album, kind of represent what I feel like 90s music might have sounded like if grunge hadn't come onto the scene and stomped everybody's nuts.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that. My vote was for Enter Sandman. Because I don't really think Al has done much, if at all, with Metallica.
And see, I want to hear a food parody of cherry pie. Like go buck wild with that one, man. Because it's
Just call it
already
cherry
so
pie.
much. It's already so much energy in that song and in the polka version of it.
You're so gullible. I was only kidding. I was only kidding. I was only kidding. You thought that was for real? I was only kidding. Now, I'm sorry if you misunderstood, but the fact remains, I was only...
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you this f***ing guy, the song. This song perfectly describes a troll who expects, oh man, it's just a joke, I'm only kidding, to get them out of trouble, until eventually that doesn't.
It's the Gaslighter's anthem.
We all know this guy, right? This song, it gives me just this like secondhand annoyance and anger because I'm remembering people like this in my life. I just want to reach out through the speakers and just punch them.
So this song, and it's going to be a weird pull, so I need you guys to just bear with me here. But it gives me My Chemical Romance's cover of Desolation Row from the Watchmen soundtrack vibes.
Okay.
Am I crazy for hearing that? Seriously, it's the first and only thing I'm thinking of with this. Also, I guess when they rented that barnyard for Smells Like Nirvana, they thought, better go whole hog, and just stuck the outtakes in here. I don't get why that's here.
Had to get some more mileage out of those sheets.
Yeah, man.
I cannot construct a proper analogy for what this godforsaken song does to my ears. I hate it, and it's an F. The first 35 seconds are terrific, and I get that you have to transition away from like the gospel chorus opening into something else. But good God, do I wish he had transitioned into literally anything else.
The song is also incredibly repetitive, right?
Yeah.
Like I was only kidding.
Yeah, it's the same joke over and
Yeah.
over.
I mean, that's the point. You're supposed to hate this song, but it's like, I don't like listening to songs that make me want to hate them.
It doesn't get much more creative with the joke, though. Like, he's not finding new avenues to poke at the I was only kidding, and it's not much of an escalation at the start.
Buttface, in the past, you have gone to Matt to try to talk more songs into F, and it's not common that I put actual songs into the F tier, so here's your chance.
I will listen to this song because, again, it is not ear bleeding, but it's still a D.
Yeah, I gave this like a D plus.
If this song isn't ear bleeding, then you and I have very different definitions of what ear bleeding is.
I like this kind of rock. That's all. The rest of the song is forgettable.
I feel like you're gaslighting me. You're gonna be like, I was only kidding. It's an F tier. Go ahead.
Oreo. What's in the middle? The white stuff. The first time that I tried it, got a big sugar buzz.
Woof. Oh boy, guys, this is, do we want to go out and call this the worst food song?
No, what are you talking
Oh,
about?
this song does nothing for me. You know what it does? It makes me want to go watch the 1985 movie The Stuff. This mandatory food song just feels like filler on the album. I want to take a minute because this song is so completely forgettable. I want to point out a trend that I've noticed across all of Al's direct parodies. They're all slightly sped up.
The tempo is very noticeable in this particular song, for sure.
The BPM across the board is just a tad higher. That isn't a production mistake. If you want to match BPM, that's one of the simplest things to do. So it has to be a deliberate artistic choice for his entire career up to this point. Why? Why is that?
Because it's more fun.
Well, Al has said in interviews and things that he likes every aspect of the song to sell the song's comedy, not just the lyrics, but also the music, the beat. And if you listen to The Right Stuff, to the New Kids original version, it's a little slower and it's a lot longer.
Yeah, it's a little more laid back.
There's more instrumental bits, and that's fine, but it's not funny.
This song isn't funny either.
I think this song's hilarious. I feel like this is exactly the opposite. Like, we have perfectly polarized viewpoints, because Dan observed that some of the food songs, he's just phoning it in because it's a very universal concept to people. But Rio is perfect. Like, that's a moment of inspiration. I'm sure when Al was listening to that song for the first time, I like to think he was hearing it and he looked over it and we're like Oreos in his eye line and the camera zooms in. Like, the joke is so good, it justifies the food song.
I just don't care for the music at all.
I think this song is just one of those you had to be there. I've kind of come around on boy band stuff over the years. I think this is a case for being a counterculture teen in my high school years. At some point, I was kind of like, oh. But I was like, no, I now recognize the artistry and stuff like the Backstreet Boys.
Boy bands are definitely like junk food music, right?
Yes, but you know what? Junk food can be pretty tasty. It's like you can say, hey, that piece of cake, yes, there's a lot of sugar and everything else in it, but it can taste pretty good.
They're dressed up, empty calories, mass marketed by a corporation to try and push as much of the product as possible onto the populace.
You're not wrong, but there's still real artistry in it.
Oh yeah, man. I can't bake an Oreo to save my life.
I think Rub It On My Roast is one of the best lines on the album. I just love the mental image of somebody just rubbing Oreo stank on a roast.
The song is a D. I can't follow you guys any higher than that. I don't care for it.
I've got it at a B plus.
I gave it a C plus, like B minus. It's kind of on that borderline. And the reason why is he nails the sound.
Do we like this for like middle C then?
Yeah.
Yeah. C somewhere in there.
Had to sell my internal organs just to pay the rent when I was your age. When I was your age.
All right, yuck it up, you two. Get it out.
So my note here, I wrote, late model Don Henley. This is clearly Dirty Laundry vibes, like the absolute just seeping through this song. Like, my other note is, this is the Joe Walshiest that Jim West will ever sound, which disappoints me that Weird Al has never done any Joe Walsh parodies, because I think Joe is irreverent enough that he would like to be in on the joke.
The actual music of this song slaps so hard.
I know.
It chugs so hard. It has drive for days. That main guitar riff is the earworm of this album. It has been stuck in my head all week.
And those Brad Buxer synthesizers are absolutely killing it. Like, this is...
Yeah, it just sucks about those lyrics, eh? Like, it's the most well-worn, old man yells at clouds. Just,
See, Dan, you and I were the perfect age for this song
Yes.
to resonate with us in the early
Yep.
90s.
This is my grandpa.
Yeah, my stepdad would regale us with stories of how he grew up in the kids' home, like back in the day. Like, I had to eat cold green beans out of the can. And I'm like, sorry, we have Nintendo now. So
You don't have to put salt on snails.
my earliest bouts with putting together what would eventually become my life philosophy of skepticism and questioning things was probably rooted in those kind of stories. Like, you're BSing me about what it was like when and Al captures that so perfectly in this song. Like, didn't have no waterbed, had to sleep on broken glass. Yep, those are the two options, Al.
I do like to think that my grandpa, he was not an angry guy. He was a very lovable person. And anytime he sort of did things like this, it was always in an elbowy, jokey kind of way.
Mhm.
Very rarely would he get upset about modern things or whatever. All of us, even Buttface in his tender years of whatever he is right now, he too, we knew what it was, but then they changed it was, so we're not with it anymore, and it'll happen to you.
Maybe this is one of the darkest lines in the song, but it is the one that made me laugh the hardest. Was Dad would whoop us every night till 12:15. Then he'd get too tired and he'd make us whoop ourselves. It's like,
Wow.
buddy, that is a hell of a line, but it was the one that made me laugh. Good on you.
I like this for S tier.
I have it in an A. I don't think I can talk it up to an S because, again, it's evergreen comedy, though, right? Every generation has this.
I don't know. It would be a different list of things.
But the spirit
If, like,
is still
millennial
there.
parents were... The spirit's there, but, like, Zoomers today, they're not gonna have the same list of things,
No, but it's
right?
the same
But here's
sentiment.
the thing, they have the retort. They can just go, okay, boomer, and that just completely deflates them. We didn't have that. We just went, whatever, man. Is this really S tier?
Yes.
Join me in A.
I adore
I
this
wrote
song.
down an A. I mean, I really love the music, but I don't think the lyrics are that original. I mean, I'm not sitting here and laughing my butt off.
We have a big problem.
Okay.
Because 2 A's and an S, meaning this does have to go higher than the polka.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's where I put it.
Oh, I don't know if I can get behind that, but okay.
Polkas have asterisks, dude. You know that.
Okay, boomer.
Taco. Grande. Taco.
I wonder if striking out with this song is why Al didn't do a full parody of Livin' La Vida Loca later in life. I feel like Rico Suave would have been better served by including it in the polka medley because, like, it's just the sequel to Lasagna,
Yep.
right? And musically, it's not as good. It's not as fun to listen to, and it's the same joke again.
I don't think we gave Lasagna enough credit in light of this song.
Yeah. It kind of is the musical equivalent of Taco Bell, isn't it?
Good night, sir. Welcome to Enrico's House of Salsa. We have very many tasty dishes. If I can recommend the fiery chicken to hell, very delicious. His eyes will burn, his stomach will be on fire. They will stay in the bathroom for a week. Do you understand what I mean? Stupid, stupid gringo.
Courtesy of Google Translate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can't speak French. I'm not going to try and translate.
They got good old Cheech Marin to do that bit, the rap breakdown. Al assumed Cheech was perfectly fluent in Spanish, when this is incorrect because Cheech is American. He was born and raised in Los Angeles, and his Spanish apparently was on the same level of Al's. So what they did is they had somebody at Scotty Brothers translate the rap to Spanish and write it out phonetically for Cheech to read.
Oh my
Oh
goodness.
no.
Yeah.
I don't hate it, but I have it as a very high D because I skip it when I listen to the album.
I gave it a C.
I will admit, I do like hearing Al seduce me with Taco Grande.
It is the best part of the song.
Yeah, as the punchline for the whole song, though, yeah, it's a D.
I do need a quesadilla though. I'll tell
I'm
you
gonna
that
have a
much.
burrito after we're done.
Guys, it is Taco Tuesday.
Whoa, you set my ever-loving heart on fire, Airline Amy. Tell me I'm your favorite frequent flyer, Airline Amy.
I just want to give a shout out to this excellent lyric. A little piece of heaven on a 747. So, hey guys, remember Incel Guy? He's back, except now he's terrorizing service employees.
Yeah, this is a stewardess simp.
No, I don't think so. I think she's into it.
I don't know. I've been in a lot of situations where I can tell
Yeah.
that there's dudes who are trying to really ingratiate themselves to service employees who are being nice because it's their job.
This is a weird parasocial relationship
Yes.
with a service workers whose literal job is to be nice to you. That is what they're paid to do. There's nothing that are like the outright alarm bells ringing, this guy will chop you up and feed you to his chihuahua. Oh, right. We should talk about what the actual song sounds like. It's pop rock, the likes of which just wash right over me and have no staying power.
I think it's a really fun song to listen to.
It's fun. I like it. After looking up some Nick Lowe stuff, I can definitely hear what Nick Lowe is supposed to sound like. And I wrote, like, what if Huey Lewis and ELO joined together and they went a little country?
Yeah, I'd never heard Nick Lowe before, so thanks for turning me on to that.
Yeah.
But also, it's fairly forgettable in my mind.
My lady wife and I own a copy of the Kama Sutra, and I don't think that an upright locked position is covered therein.
Yeah, that is the best. That is the punchline of the song, and Al knew it.
I actually really, really like this song. Like, it's just not doing anything special. Like, okay, maybe it's an unhealthy parasocial relationship, but it's not abusive. Nobody's getting their brains chopped up for frisbee. And, like, it could be the first act in, like, a romantic comedy where at the end, like, they fall in love forever. Like, that's perfectly acceptable romance subplot.
Are you saying this belonged in Up in the Air?
I can see Jennifer Aniston playing Airline Amy, I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, what are we grading this? I initially wrote down B for Boeing.
I have an A for Airline Amy.
I have it as a C. I'm sorry. Again, just it's forgettable pop.
Now we're back in up. But it won't go down.
Buttface, I was really overjoyed that I got to introduce you earlier this week to Girl You Know It's, Girl You Know It's, Girl You Know It's. What a fun moment in musical history.
So my note was, if Al has a plumbing problem, does he call the Mario Brothers?
No, he calls the guy from Handy.
I also wrote Proto Handy.
I love what Al does with all like the little vanilla-isms in this song, like the bebe. Yeah, this is just a fun song. I really enjoy it. Like this song for me, making fun of Don't Forget My Number, definitely elevated parody zip code here. A parody of that would be like middle B for me, but then suddenly pivoting into also being a parody of Blame It on the Rain elevates this, just squeaks it up into A tier.
I like that Neil Ross came back.
This is that completely studio manufactured pop dance music that I have no desire to sit down and listen to. Again, it's not my genre, man.
In a way, this is kind of like the real last gasp of the 80s.
Yeah, sure is, bud.
Yeah.
This song actually has like a message that I can 100% get behind. I have helped build a few homes from the ground up. The only thing that I refuse to do in all of the construction process is the plumbing. I've also worked for a couple of years at a hardware store. And let me tell you, there is nothing more arcane than the number of fittings and connectors and types of pipe, and then trying to work out the math on the flow rates. Look.
Have you ever been in a situation in that line of work where you had to blame it on the drain?
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure, eh, bud? Like, with plumbing, you can bork your whole system 6 ways from Sunday and not find out about it for years.
Dan, I think for us, the emotionally triggering song on the album was Trigger Happy. I think for Buttface, it's the plumbing song.
Yeah.
He's going to some dark places over there.
Plumbing, you leave it to the professionals.
I agree.
Anyways, this is a D song.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I really don't like this song. Again, it is just not my sonic cup of tea.
I gave it a B.
A B, so that's going to push it just barely up into the bottom of our B tier, but not the very bottom.
Yes, it has to be above the song that shall not be named.
I knew that we were having problems when you put those piranhas in my bathtub again. You're still the light of my life.
This is the other side of Only Kidding or Good Enough for Now. It's a perfectly serviceable love ballad. There's not really any strong points musically that I want to like note on. It's Sounds like a love ballad. Go
This
figure.
is a breakup song, not a love ballad.
Well, the humor's coming from that, like, completely absurd retaliation, just a completely unresponsive reaction.
I wrote this is like mixing James Taylor with America's Sister Golden here. There's a lot of like Seals and Croft, England Dan and John Ford Coley going on in here. And the funny thing is every time I hear Al go, "Oh, don't love me anymore," like when I hear this, I swear I've heard that exact delivery in some other song before.
The intonation.
Yeah, the intonation, the delivery of it. Everybody knows these songs. They're just trite and treacly, and I don't think it's particularly funny takedown of them.
I couldn't disagree more. I think this is Al's best bad relationship song. It's like the trifecta. Like layer one, every line is funny. You poison my coffee a little each day. It's just really funny. And then the second layer is the level to which this character has been gaslit, where he's only just now starting to sense like maybe something's a little off here. And then the third layer is the juxtaposition between like taking that subject matter and adapting it to what is like a sad breakup song, because this is pointedly not a breakup song. He hasn't broken up with her, even though she's trying to kill him.
Look, she will eventually get the divorce, and then he'll have to start paying alimony.
Is it possible this is chapter 2 to She Never Told Me She Was a Mime? S plus. I love it.
Oh, oof.
Yeah, no, as someone with a real rough time picking up on social cues, like, I get this song, but it's not enough to raise it above, like, a C for me.
To me, it felt like a B.
How high in B do you want to put this
I
down?
don't know. It's just middle of the road. I would put it below Nirvana.
I feel like this is Weird Al's best bad relationship song, and he's got a lot of those. But, dot.
Audio redacted.
On the original album, on the CD, this was a hidden track. This was really popular in the early 90s. It might have been, was it pioneered by Nirvana? Nevermind.
No, it's just an extension of what people used to do with run out tracks.
So the way it worked is You Don't Love Me Anymore was actually like a 12-minute long track or something. So the song would end and it'd play like 10 minutes of silence, and then that is a spoof of something that Nirvana had done at the end of Nevermind. Here's the problem that I had growing up, because I owned a copy of Weird Al's Greatest Hits Volume 2, which was very heavy on material from Off the Deep End and Alapalooza. So we loaded all the CDs into the player. We had a lot of repeats, okay? You Don't Love Me Anymore was one of those repeats. So every time the song came up in the playlist, we'd be like playing Nintendo or jumping on the trampoline or something, listening to music. Every time the song came up in the playlist, anxiety would trigger in my brain like, oh God, is this the good one? Is this the one where we just listen to the song? Or is this one where I'm going to have to run back inside and skip 10 minutes of silence so we don't all get our brains blown out by terrible noise?
Now, Brick, I would like to point out that the lyrics as listed on the Weird Al fan wiki are duh.
I can appreciate intellectually that you guys don't love You Don't Love Me Anymore like I do. I'm perfectly fine with that. However, I like that song so much that the fact that I have this permanent negative psychological response to hearing the first few bars of the song, like that's gonna be in my brain forever. Those funky neurons doing what they do. There was some discussion in our Discord chat whether we should even grade this. And I was adamant, yes, I need, guys, please, I need to put this in F tier. I have to have that moment in my life.
I'll give that to you.
No, this is an F tier song, but do we put it behind or in front of Gandhi 2?
I will put this at the very bottom of F tier on the master list. I will make 100 blank icons to put in between the second worst song on the master list and this. It's just 7 seconds of terrible noise that Al only put on the album for the explicit purpose of making me mad.
He's just kidding.
Oh, he was only kidding. Yeah, sorry. You guys can do your album.
Yeah, I'm
rankings
looking
now.
at my album rankings here, and I got a lot of D's on this album.
I mean, I'm not counting Bite Me in my rankings. I mean, there's some real winners on this album, and it's as
Are
far as
there?
I
have 2 winners and you have 3.
for a coming out of a slump album, this is absolutely what Al needed.
If I was to average this, it would sit probably around a C still, just looking at it. And again, completely ignoring that F at the bottom.
I mean, I would probably give it a B. The winners are really good. There's definitely some mediocrity on it.
Ugh. Yeah, sorry, no, I can't. This is tied there with UHF.
I mean, say what you will about the album, but you have to, of course, appreciate "Smells Like Nirvana" as one of his like smash
Absolutely.
hits.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
For Potpourri tonight, we're taking a little detour in reverse chronologically. And the reason why is there was an album that we did not cover because we weren't quite sure where it fit. So we sat down and listened to Weird Al and Wendy Carlos's collaboration, Peter and the Wolf.
As always, the part of Bob the janitor is played by the accordion.
So there was a glut of Peter and the Wolf albums in like the 80s and early 90s. I guess you could call
Was
them
there?
adaptations. Oh, yeah. And I think the reason why is that this is a very accessible way to introduce 8 to 10-year-olds to classical music and how to interpret it. You know, it's 15 to 20 minutes long, depending on whatever arrangement you're doing. There's a little story that goes along that you can read along, and you can say, oh, this instrument is this and this, and it's for impressionable minds. Near where I grew up in the Berkshire Hills of Massachusetts, there's a place called Tanglewood where the Boston Symphony Orchestra plays. And during the summertime, they have stuff for kids. They're like, oh, you know, bring your kids down and get them to appreciate music or whatever. And they did a Peter and the Wolf performance with Yo-Yo Ma, who lives in the Berkshires. So it's like, hey, you get to hang out with Yo-Yo Ma, and we'll give you a CD that has Melissa Joan Hart explaining Peter and the Wolf on it. And I don't know when that trend died down, but Al got into this with Wendy Carlos, a pioneering woman in synthesizers. She worked together with Peter Moog to make the first Moog synthesizer, and since then has been a driving force in the world of electronic music.
This definitely does feel more like a Wendy Carlos project than a Weird Al project.
Yeah, and I think that might be the reason why it's gone out of print. There must be a rights thing or something going, because I don't even think it's on Squeezebox, is it?
No, you've got to go onto the bowels of archive.org.
Yeah,
to
if
find
you
this
want to
nowadays.
own this, you will be spending a lot of money. And as far as Peter and the Wolf adaptations go, I'd say it's not bad. It's jokey. It's funny. It's definitely not the sound of Al that you're used to, you know, him doing spoken word. I have no idea where I could possibly rank this. In terms of Al's discography, I don't know. I mean, it's good. It's nice to listen to, but it's Peter and the Wolf. I'd give it a B.
Al's doing a lot with the material that he's given. Like, he's playing
Yeah.
around in the space. He's making... It's nice to see him, or see what he considers to be, like, kid-friendly humor. And it still end up being a little bit dark, and also with some scientific insight.
Get your, go to the dentist twice a year, folks.
This is one of the times Al did this later with Albuquerque and the Brain song, where he ends with a moral that's almost a non sequitur. I have listed here in my notes that the most noteworthy parts of the new script are like the Al flavored groaners.
Yes.
But yeah, it is just a production of Peter and the Wolf, and I think I have this as like a C+. I enjoyed listening to it, and I think if it were available, I think I would buy a copy of this for like my young nieces.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, get them started on the music appreciation train.
Yeah, it's a good gift for kids, but again, I can't rank it higher than a C.
Deep inside the murky swamp, there lives the alligator. His policy is first to chomp, and then ask questions later. Although his lifestyle may seem crass, I really wouldn't knock it. He'd never wear a shirt that has a yuppie on the pocket.
So the B-side of Peter and the Wolf is Carnival of the Animals Part 2. Growing up, and even as an adult, I've always admired the work of Shel Silverstein. And that's the zip code that Carnival of the Animals Part 2 falls into. Because what these are is Al has little, usually just rhyming couplets, funny lines about a particular animal, and then Carlos plays some music for a couple of minutes. And there's like a dozen or so track until they run out of animals, and Al says, "We're tired, so we're going home now. Thanks for listening." I was actually happy to put these, because Peter and the Wolf is one long track, whereas these are short individual 1 or 2 minute tracks, I was actually happy to just drop these into my Al playlists.
Oh, I'm ranking this whole set as a B. Like, it's higher than Peter and the Wolf. And I'd never heard this before. Like, this is the first time I've actually sat down to listen to this set of albums, because again, it's hard to find anywhere. I'm gonna return to Carnival of the Animals Part 2 for future, like, musical noodling inspiration. Because Wendy goes hog wild here.
Oh, yeah.
It goes absolutely nuts.
She says she loved working on this. Now, have you guys ever heard Carnival of the Animals, the original?
Nope.
Okay. Buttface, you probably should look that up at some point.
I gotta ask, are these all new original compositions by Wendy Carlos in the same zip code, or are they covered?
These are new compositions.
Yeah, because some of them are really interesting to listen to. So I was having a blast sitting down and listening to this part. They're really short song snippets. They're not fully fleshed out ideas, but it does feel just like people sitting down in the studio having a fun time messing around with synthesizer. It's a strong beat.
And this is like the state of the art in samplers and synthesizers from 1988. Somebody like Wendy Carlos, top of their game in their field with just all their tools available, just going hog wild.
You were not lying when you said pioneering continually.
Dan, do you also like this for B tier?
Oh, yeah, I can put this in B tier.
I'd put this above Nirvana, honestly.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like the whole package is, again, it just is so energetic and interesting to listen to.
Well, guys, we got through the album that we had to push through to get to Alapalooza.
Hooray.
Yay.
We've officially done 50% of the albums.
Dan, are we going to have to like mentally prepare ourselves for Buttface's irrational onslaught?
I hate Bohemian Polka.
God damn it.
So terrible.
If hairballs grease and goo won't let the water through, blame it on the drain. Yeah.
I'm just in awe of Dan using the phrase, it was the culture of the hip hop at the time. The old men. The old men.
With the hippin' and the hoppin' and the bippin' and the boppin'.